Good evening. This is the meeting of the Personnel Board. We now have a quorum. Scott Yankee, Tracy Vasili, Dennis Keel. Joining us is also Jack Dolan and Kathleen Lang.
Katie Lang, yep.
Katie Lang, I'm sorry. Good evening, everyone. Can anyone hear us?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Dennis, Tracy, you can hear us?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so what's our first item?
Okay, so there were three things on the agenda. We're going to talk about social media policy, also the federal vaccine policy or mandate, which is in stay, and then also nomination and election of officers for the Personnel Board. I would like to suggest that we hold off on social media policy. That's just really reviewing something we already have so that we can talk a little bit about this proposed federal mandate and then give the board an opportunity to do nominations and elections for officers, if that's
That works
okay
fine
with you, Mr. Chairman.
Please
Okay.
explain.
So what we've done at this point is our labor attorney has prepared policies, draft policies for us in the event that the federal government should mandate us to require all of our employees to become vaccinated. These are only draft, and you know the OSHA's mandate is being stayed in court at this point, but we are being advised by our labor attorney that we should at least be prepared. We're not sending anything to our employees or to the unions at this point, but I just want to make the Personnel Board, and later on I'll be making the selectmen aware that we are preparing just so that we don't get caught off guard. You know, in a little bit of background, you know, we're following the masking guidelines and et cetera. We're following the safety guidelines, but at this point, we have in excess of 90% of our 177 townside employees vaccinated. And those are folks that have either voluntarily told us that they are vaccinated or have come to our town-sponsored vaccination site that's been put on by the fire department. So we feel like we're in very good shape. We don't feel the need to mandate the other 9 or 10% of our employees to become vaccinated, but we do want to be prepared should the federal government make that a requirement. And you know, we don't know where that's going to land at this point, but it is held up in court. I don't know if there's anything that any of the board members would like to comment on that, or our HR attorney, Jack Dolan, but that's where we are at so far on this federal mandate.
Mike, it's Tracy. So if the government does not step in and mandate the vaccination or the testing, the town is not thinking that they're going to do that at the town level?
It would not be my recommendation to mandate it. You know, from the beginning or from early on, since the vaccines have been approved, the government was suggesting, or CDC was suggesting that you know, communities get to 70% vaccination to get to herd immunity. Now, if that science has changed or when that science is updated, you know, certainly we're going to follow the guidelines of the health community and the scientific community, but we're 20% higher than that. So it would not be my recommendation that we mandate employees to become vaccinated. There are some, for a variety of reasons, who either cannot or have chosen not to become vaccinated. But again, we were just below 90% of our employees who were unvaccinated. At this point, we're just over 90%. So it's not my decision, but it would not be my recommendation that we mandate our employees to become vaccinated.
and I agree that we shouldn't mandate vaccinations, but if somebody's not vaccinated, will we require regular COVID-19 testing and wearing of face masks, or we're going to follow whatever the government tells us we have to?
Correct. So we're already requiring that they wear face masks, in any buildings. So that's posted on our public buildings, and the same is put out for the public at large entering our buildings. Unvaccinated individuals need to wear a face mask. So we're already following that. As part of one of these policies, it does mandate that folks who are not vaccinated, that they do get regularly tested, wear a mask, and so forth. And it goes into great detail on these policies that Katie sent out to you. So if the federal government moves forward with this, if it gets through court and is not further held up, then we'll be following whatever the federal and state guidelines are. At this point, we are following CDC guidelines.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome, Tracy. Thanks for that question.
Dennis, Scott?
Mike, is this open to general questions, or is that?
Yeah, Gary and I would take any general questions.
Razy?
So that was the question I had in terms of, mandating. And I think, just as a disclosure, I do have a public health background. I do consulting for some colleges around their COVID, guidelines, and it's common in colleges, at least, for mandating. And that's had mixed results, but that's a subject for another day. So the thing I had in terms of all of the policies are written really, really well, but things are changing so rapidly. Just a couple of comments that I would make is if these go forward in their current form, it's very likely that the definition of what constitutes being fully vaccinated might change. So you might want to tweak the language to reflect that there may be changes that this policy would adapt to if those changes were to occur. For instance, what I'm saying specifically is boosters. It's possible, maybe even probable, that in the near future, you're not fully vaccinated until you actually get a booster in addition to the 2-shot or 1-shot regimen. So I just kind of put that out as consideration for, making the policy flexible so you don't have to come back and approve it again if that was to happen. And it could be, certainly within the next 6 months to a year that something like that would happen.
Yeah, Dennis, that's a very good point. And actually, we're seeing something similar. This board and the town and the selectmen did a really good job back early on in the pandemic of adapting or adopting policies for the changing landscape, and we did rely, as usual, on our labor attorney and our HR counsel to guide us through that process. But that was early on. That was before there was any vaccine. So we addressed people traveling out of state. We addressed what it would take to open buildings, working remote, all those sort of things. Just yesterday, I faced a situation with an employee who was traveling out of state. They were going to be coming back. We expected them to be, tested and quarantined before they come back because that was the policy. And actually, we were challenged on that because that's not what our policy said. And lo and behold, that is not what our policy said because we didn't have vaccines back then. What we were attempting to do was to keep the individual as well as the rest of the workforce and the community safe by following best practices, but not realizing that those policies we adopted were pre-vaccination. So now there's a difference. We've got, most people vaccinated and a very small percentage of our workforce who are not. And I think that's something that we're going to come back and revisit. Didn't have time for this evening because this just came up yesterday. So that's an issue that we're going to want to, again, rely on Jack, as we always do, as our HR counsel, and also touch base with our labor attorney and see what they recommend to us. But that touches on the very point that you raised, Dennis, is we need to be fluid. We need to be ready to adapt. And if there's language that we can work in here that allows us to be able to stay current, even as the definition of vaccination changes, as you mentioned, once upon a time it was either the one Johnson & Johnson or the two, of the other vaccines, and now all of a sudden we have the booster, which we didn't anticipate early on. So very good point. Thank you for that, Dennis.
So that may be sufficient.
If I may briefly.
Go ahead, Jack.
Thank you. In response to Mr. Keefe and also to your comments, Mike, earlier today I was working with another client on a vaccination mandate policy, and I did include optional language regarding boosters and a requirement that employees stay current with respect to CDC guidelines for obtaining boosters once they're approved for them. So, I think if anything, we've learned to be adaptable during this pandemic, and we're going to have to continue to be adaptable. All these policies are going to be very fluid. So,
would it be sufficient?
I would also note that in terms of boosters becoming more part of the definition of fully vaccinated, we're going to have some time anyway, because as Michael mentioned, and as you probably all know, the OSHA standard is currently on hold. Its fate is going to be decided by the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals. There were so many appeals nationwide that they had essentially a lottery to decide which Circuit Court of Appeals would decide this case. That tends to be one of the most conservative circuits in the United States. So I don't know what that portends for the fate of this mandate, but we'll see. In any event, even if it were to become a mandate tomorrow, which it won't, but if it were, it isn't self-executing as to local governments in Massachusetts. So there'd have to be further action. So we'll have time to be adaptable. We'll have time to make tweaks to the policy as we need to. But I think it's wise, as Michael is doing, to be prepared, to think ahead and be prepared. So we have a chance to discuss all of this in a more reasoned manner.
All right, Jack, if I may, the end of the second paragraph, the last sentence reading, as applicable and intended to comply with all federal, state, and local laws. Could we just add wording at the very end, as laws may change, we will stay current with them, something along that idea? Wouldn't that cover it?
Well, depending on what the changes are, there may be bargaining obligations with respect to it. I think it's probably wise for us to just consider this a work in progress for now. That type of language may be wise, Gary, but I think for now, I'd just wait and see what comes out of the Sixth Circuit and also Massachusetts regulatory authorities with respect to public entities.
And that brings up another good point. And as I referred to just a few minutes ago, just yesterday, I was challenged on something that I thought we were on solid ground on with, employees traveling out of state. It turns out I was not correct because the policies were adopted pre-vaccination. But I will say that the policies that all of you reviewed and helped to solidify and adapt and move forward to the selectmen, that was good work. We did good work in a short amount of time in the interest of public health. And I'm really proud of the work that this board did in taking that and moving it forward. And following that, I took all of those policies to each of the unions, met with them, discussed them, and there was some back and forth. And in regards to one of them was on remote work, and folks understood that, you know, they were going to be able to still work, and if the opportunity was there to maybe work remotely. Another one was more flexible definition and use of sick time to be able to adapt to, you know, to folks that were challenged with either being ill with COVID-19 or facing school closure or daycare closure. And so the unions and the employees really saw it as a two-way street, that you know, we were working to protect the public and the employees, and they saw some benefit for their own protection, as well as their own use of being able to use sick leave where they normally would not be able to use sick leave if they were not sick. So you know, we did bargain those. There was not cost associated with that bargaining, but it really, you know, again, to yesterday's example, it'll be the same thing, that I'll need to go back and talk with unions about that, just as we will with some of this. I need to, as we get closer, you know, I will need to talk with each of the unions about this. I don't anticipate, you know, problems, but you know, we'll see. We'll be best prepared. We'll be open and honest with our employees and with the public, and that's really why I wanted to bring these in front of you tonight, because I think it's about being prepared, being transparent, and you know, in the sake of, you know, caring for our employees and the safety and health of our community.
Thank you. Anything else to add on this subject?
Nothing here, Gary.
All right, we'll move on.
And the only, I suggest maybe we hold off on the electronic communication policy and we take that up at our next meeting. But I did want to give time, because I didn't get it on your agenda last time, to do nominations and election of officers of the Personnel Board. And Katie has something to share with us.
I'm sorry, Mike. The board has actually already adopted the electronic communications and computer use policy. It was just, I know Tracy had some comments, which we did share with the group and with Jack, and those were the only edits that were made to that policy.
You are absolutely correct. So, Gary, you have that policy in front of you, and you're correct. Tracy made some you know, substantial and I think really solid comments. She was not able to be at the meeting, but we felt that it needed to come back in front of the Personnel Board for a vote to move that forward.
Right, and I think at the time when she made them, we all agreed that it was prudent to make those changes, and we all authorized the edits.
I'll turn it back over to you, Mr. Chairman.
So if we want to take another vote on it, is that what you'd like us to do? Does everyone have a copy of this? No? All right.
I do.
Wait till the next meeting?
I don't believe I recall receiving the one with the changes, Gary.
I sent that one out. I can resend it. I sent it today, and then I sent it after Gary had approved all the changes and after Jack looked at it as well. But that was back in September. I apologize.
Nope.
Is anyone willing to vote on it now, or do you want to put it off to our next meeting?
How important is it that we approve it now?
I think
That's
that
right on it. Endorsed and supported by Personnel Board on the 14th of September.
Yeah.
So based on that, I'm comfortable voting if others are.
Yeah, I'm comfortable. You know, I read it, I have it, and I know one of the changes that was suggested was in the signature line, you know, that people verify that they understand what's in this policy, and they know that if they violate it, they're subject to discipline up to and including termination. I thought it was important to put it in that section, and it's there. So I'm ready to sign.
Scott, are you comfortable with it?
I'm comfortable with it. I received it earlier today and read through it again. There were minor changes from last time.
Right, that we okayed at that time.
Yep.
So I'll entertain a motion to accept this policy.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Moved by Tracy, seconded by Scott. All in favor? I'll take a roll
Gotta do a
call.
roll.
Dennis says aye. Tracy?
Aye.
Tracy's aye. Scott?
Aye.
Gary? Aye. Approved.
Very good. Excellent. Thank you. And then the last order of business would be, for the
Officers.
nomination and election of officers of the Personnel Board.
Okay, I'll open it up for nominations for chair.
I nominate Gary Whitehouse.
Any other nominations, please?
Okay, I nominate Gary too.
I got the impression when I didn't get it on the agenda last time that he was eager to get out of the chair, but correct me if I'm wrong.
No, you're very correct. I've been doing this for a few years. I would like to nominate Tracy. I think she'd do a hell of a job.
I would love to, but I just became chapter advisor for Alpha Chi Omega at Brown University. I'm trying to shed a few things, but if I get sucked in every time, Gary, honestly.
How do you think I got here?
But you got 2 nominations and I only got 1, so I think it needs to be 2.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't count Tracy.
Dennis or Scott, help me out and nominate Gary, please.
Knocking in between you two.
Scott, you're 2 doors away.
As a member of the advisory board, am I able to do that?
Yes.
Yes, you're a voting member.
Yes. Okay, I nominate Gary.
Yes.
All right, I'll take a vote.
Okay.
Dennis?
Gary?
Tracy?
Gary.
Scott?
Gary.
Gary?
Gary.
Thank you for your support, Gary. So I'll make
Don't worry, we don't want
vice
your back.
chair. I will bring Tracy as vice chair to continue as vice chair. It's my nomination.
Never vice chair to begin with.
You're the vice chair right now.
But my peers have not voted me in.
Okay, I've got to nominate Scott
Do I
as the
have to
vice
nominate
chair.
Tracy for vice chair?
All right, so that's 2 for Tracy then?
Yes, I vote for Tracy.
Okay.
Vice
And
chair.
Lori
I
Flynn.
nominate
All
and
in
vote
favor,
for
Tracy? Scott?
Aye, yes.
Dennis? Aye.
Yes.
It will be. Gary
Okay.
says aye. Thank you, Tracy.
I didn't even vote.
All right, we had 3. We're good.
Scott, when you like your yard is toilet paper.
Yep.
Katie, is there something you'd like to say?
Sorry, I know. One more thing. Could you also just review and approve the meetings from our last meeting on September 14th?
We have
Please.
those minutes in front of us?
I think she sent them.
In a minute.
I
Yep,
didn't
I
see
sent those after our meeting in September.
She's on top of stuff.
I know, I'm pretty quick over here, but I can resend them if everyone likes, and we can have that for the next meeting.
Does everyone
They're,
remember reading them? Is everyone comfortable voting on them?
I think I had approved them when you sent them out.
Yeah,
Yep.
as I recall, yeah.
Right.
Scott, you comfortable? Seen them?
Yeah, I don't recall going through it. I'm trying to look back quickly.
Tracy, do you remember?
I have them actually open in front of me, and I was not there,
Right.
so I would abstain. It was Gary, Dennis, Scott, and Nancy was in attendance via Zoom.
Gary, that would have been a good meeting to nominate Tracy.
Yes, I should learn that lesson, huh? Next time. Thank you, Jack.
Jack, you're fired.
Okay, I can
Okay, you're
see them
safe
now.
now, Tracy.
Scott, I'm sorry.
For a year anyway.
I found the minutes, so I did go through them back then. I'm fine with it.
Okay, so I'll accept a motion to approve those minutes.
So move.
Okay, second?
Second.
Okay. Approved, yeah. Motion was made by Dennis, approved, seconded by Scott. All in favor? Roll call, Dennis?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Tracy, you're abstaining. Gary, yes. Approved, thank you.
I suggest that we try to be flexible and maybe plan on meeting again in January. If not mid to late January, then maybe early February. Just in, to touch on this as well as any other things that are changing in the landscape, and then come back with any changes to the social media policy. Would that be okay with the chair?
Yep, that would be fine. Sometime mid-January?
Yeah, so we've got,
Works.
can we like lock it down just because that's kind of helpful? We've got the 4th, the 11th, the 18th, and the 25th. 25th is not good for me.
Usually works better for Mike if it's the same night as the selectmen's meeting, so he's, can combine them both in
Well,
the same evening.
18th works.
Do you want to do the 18th? Because that's the same night as the selectmen's meeting, Katie?
Does that work
Yeah,
better
that
for you,
works, Mike, if that's amenable to you.
Sure, that's the 18th? That's fine.
January 18th. That way Mike's only running one night rather than two.
Yeah.
And is 5:30 okay with everyone, or is later preferable?
5:30 is great.
Yeah, 5:30
It's
works.
fine. Yep.
Good.
Okay. All set, Mike?
Yep, so we'll send that policy back out to you. We'll let you know of anything we need to be prepared for in regards to the draft policy we talked about this evening, and we'll get the minutes out to you and anything else we need to discuss prior to the January 18th meeting at 5:30 then.
Very good. I'll entertain a
Can
motion.
I just request, Katie, just at end of that prior week, if you could just kind of resend anything that we need to look at, just so we
Sure,
have a few
I know, I
days to
won't-
digest.
Promise I won't do it again the day of. I'll send it like that Thursday if that's good for everyone.
If there is a draft agenda that you guys prepare, just to send that along too, even if it's not final.
Yeah. Good
Yep,
suggestion,
that
thank
works
you.
great.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion.
To adjourn. So moved.
So moved, thank you. Good night, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.